All right, I'm starting, honey. Having troubles here. All right, I think I'm getting the hang of this. All right, I'm on locals, and I should be on YouTube. And welcome everybody to Monday's live stream. I'm going to allow some time for people to come in. I got a couple of topics to discuss today. It's going to be real good. Got YouTube over here, and I've got locals here. Now, here's the thing about this setup. Only the locals folks will get to see the entire live stream. So if you want to join us on locals, that's at thelastsymptom.locals.com, or you can download the locals.com app from the App Store and search for The Last Symptom by Brian Barnett and join us that way. Two topics today. One, relationships between a person's character and how they act when they live with BPD. For example, if I've been lied to, how do I know that the person's lies aren't related to a lack of character, but are just part of borderline personality disorder? And then the other topic is, let me pull it up here, sabotaging. We're going to talk about sabotaging behaviors. So before we get into all that, let me check in with everybody over here on locals. People are starting to come in. Hi, everybody. Type me something. If you can hear me and see me fine, type something there in the comments. I see Heather's typing. Okay, good. Thank you, Heather. You can see and hear me. I'm going to assume that the folks on YouTube can also see me and hear me. For those of you who are just coming in, I'm also streaming this on YouTube, but only a portion of it. As you know, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the conversation, I usually switch over to only for supporters, and that's what I'm going to be doing in this instance too. So let's catch up. How are you guys doing? How was your weekends? Heather says very nice. Did you stay at home? Did you get out? Did you do something over the weekend? I see Anna's here too. Ann, did you get my email about the extension? Mm. Heather took her grandkids to a jumpy place. Man, that's one of those things I really miss about being a kid. Ann says, I'm tuning in from the Tel Aviv airport on my way back to Boston. Well, we're all over the place, aren't we? We're international. That's kind of cool. How is the Tel Aviv airport? Is it a nice one? Did you see the new Red Sox cap I bought, Ann? It should be in the mail tomorrow. Oh, okay, so that's why Ann hasn't been able to check her mail. She's been traveling. All right, well, I did do the extension, and you should be okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started today. I got a lot to talk about, believe it or not. Some really good um, topics to talk about. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about sabotaging, and then Cat 007 wanted me to talk about a person's character and borderline personality disorder. And she, I'm going to assume you're a she, Cat, gave the example of somebody lying to you and you trying to decide or understand whether the lion is just an aspect of borderline personality disorder, or does this reveal the person's character? And so my question for you, Kat, would be um, would have to do with consequences and conditions. Is the healthy way to handle unwanted behaviors or attitudes, or let's just say behaviors, is the reason for the unhealthy behavior or the unwanted behavior, is that relevant to how a healthy person healthfully deals with that sort of behavior? Am I making sense? Let's put it this way. Let's say that the person's lying to you and it's just because they have borderline personality disorder. Now let's say that another person is lying to you because they're just a bad person. Is the way you deal with the lying different for one than the other? See if anybody has anything to say about that. Heather says, I don't think it's different. And Kat is typing. Let's see what Kat says. So remember, the idea here is your emotional health. So, you know, okay, Kat says she's new here, so she got in. All right. So the main consideration is your emotional health. And your part of the equation there is how you deal with somebody lying to you, not their reasons for lying or anything like that. It's how do you handle it, and that's a whole discussion about boundaries. And I very rarely like to talk about boundaries as just boundaries, because boundaries in the boundary equation is the least important aspect of boundaries. The most important aspect of boundaries is consequences and conditions. So, in a case where somebody's lying to you, the fact that they might be lying to you because they only just because they have an emotional disorder should not affect whatsoever consequences and conditions. No different than if the person's just lying to you because they're a bad person. Does I hope that helps. In other words, we don't say, well, boy, this person's got borderline personality disorder and that's why they're lying to me, so I need to make exceptions. I need to make exceptions. I need to view their lying differently than I would view it if the person was is just a bad person. No, you handle it exactly the same way. In this latest episode of the Last Symptom podcast, which I just published on Thursday, I discussed this kind of in detail about. I'm losing my thought. But anyway, follow up with that episode. I think you'll get more insights into that. I don't feel very eloquent today. I think it's because I know that I'm under more scrutiny than usual. I'm having a hard time forgetting that I'm on camera. Let's go into the second discussion, Kat, and perhaps it will provide even more insights into what we're talking about. So the second subject is sabotaging, and somebody on the group suggested this topic, and I think it's a he, said, I just found the podcast a few months ago and slowly working my way through. I was wondering if anyone had insight or an episode that covers this issue I have. whenever my wife and I have something fun planned in the evening, I always have some kind of episode in the morning that ruins the evening. I've listened to the episode that describes why I'm never excited for events, which definitely hit home. But now I'm wondering why I ruined the day before fun activities. So, what he's talking about here is sabotaging. Uh, and I definitely remember doing it. I can definitely remember exactly the feelings that I was experiencing when I did it. And I can definitely tell you the reasons why that happens. I saw Dee Dee starting to type something there. Dee Dee says, I totally do that. I thought it was anxiety driven. Well, you're partly right, Dee Dee. Yeah, as we get into this discussion, you'll see that you are partly right. Ann says, what episode is that? Boy, I think that was like in the first season. And to, to refresh your memory, I think I was talking about my buddy Jordan, how we'd climb up on the top of this roof of his coal shed um, like the night before vacation. I remember us being up on top of that shed and him being so excited for the impending vacation that we were just about to go on. And I couldn't feel any excitement at all. And he even called me out on that. He said, "Well, I don't understand it. I get so excited for vacation, and you don't show any emotion. You don't show any excitement or anything." And until he had said that, I never realized that I did that. But I definitely did used to do that when I had borderline personality disorder. I see I see a lot of typing beginning, and I feel like maybe I'm cutting some of yous off. Go ahead. Let's see what you have to say. And you're absolutely right. Anne says there's so many episodes now, it's hard to locate specific ones. She does remember that story though. Yeah, Heather, I'm pretty sure that was season one. So back to this sabotage discussion. As I told the member on our locals group, I didn't really go into great detail to answer the question for him, but I told him that it all goes back to a person's understanding of the nature of worth. And so I have an outline here. I'm gonna walk us through exactly how one's understanding of the nature of how worth works leads to sabotaging. And I think you're gonna find this very interesting. This should probably actually be an episode of the Last Symptom podcast. And so if I do make it into an episode of the Last Symptom podcast later on, uh, you guys will know why. I see Penny typing something here. Let's see what Penny has to say. Oh, okay, Penny. Good to see you. Thank you for dropping in. She says she's gonna have to watch the whole thing later. Well, nice to see you. All right, so back to sabotaging. You know what sabotaging is? Sabotaging is like, you're going to go out with the whole family, do something fun, and everybody's going to be having such a good time and everything. And even in the lead up to it, the unhealthy person is worrying about, oh my God, I'm going to ruin this. I really know that we're going to get out there and I'm just going to ruin the whole thing. Um, and will be act out, act out in ways to ruin everybody's time before they even get a chance to have fun. So then when everybody gets to the thing where we're going to have fun, it's kind of spoiled, right? Because they've everybody's had this enormous fight. it all goes back to one's understanding of the nature of worth. Now, remember that every time we have this discussion, I'm not talking about what your worth is. I'm talking about one's understanding about the nature of worth, how it works, where it comes from, what gives birth to it, the very nature of it. So, in the past, we've talked about how there are actually two types of value systems in life, not just one. There's the commercial value system, and then there's the inherent value system. Now, what's interesting about the commercial value system is that the thing itself does not create value. Rather, value comes from what people think. And that's the way I've chosen to word it from now on. It all comes back to what people think. That's how the commercial value system works. Now, think about this. Even the money in your pocket, where does its value come from? Is that dollar bill really worth a dollar? Why? Why is it worth a dollar? Because of what people think. People, it's what people think, which is what gives that dollar bill a dollar's worth of value. Have you ever stopped to think about that? The whole money system is built upon what people think. Got Heather typing here. Let's see. Often I talk about it. Yeah, this is a topic that we really talk about. We have been talking about a lot. So I often talk about it in the I often bring up the topic of cars. I've talked about comic books. I've talked about baseball trading cards. All of these things fit that formula. The baseball card is worthless. It's worthless. The value is not in the baseball card. The value is in what people think of the baseball card, right? That's why the value goes up, it goes down, and all these things. Now, problems arise when we apply that value system to people because it doesn't work for people. It doesn't apply to people. Our value as people does is of a completely different nature than the commercial value system. Unhealthy people don't know that though. They only know of the one type of value system. So they look out at, like the way, the nature of the value of an iPhone, and they apply the nature of that value system to themselves, and they apply it to other people. Now, this naturally, because a person says, well, I don't have value. Now, they may not know this consciously, but unconsciously, every person living with that false and unhealthy belief system about how human value works, unconsciously, they know what it means. That I'm worthless. I'm worthless, just like that baseball card. This necessarily leads to people loathing themselves. And that also is unconscious. I remember it well. I did not know that I loathed myself. It wasn't until I started going through recovery that I realized that if you were to go back in a time machine and ask me, 12, 13 years ago, hey, do you hate yourself? I would have said, you're out of your mind. No, I don't hate myself. I love myself. But the unhealthy person is living with this self-loathing under the radar. They don't sense it. They don't know it. So in the past, I've talked about what this self-loathing is like. It's like you being locked in a windowless office with a work partner that drives you absolutely bonkers. You hate the person. The person annoys you to death. And yet you're locked with that person in a small, windowless, cramped office all day long, every day for long periods of time. The person you're locked in the office with in the illustration here is you, yourself. So when you loathe yourself, that's what it's like. You're stuck with the person that's driving you nuts. And that person is you. So think about the effect of that day after day, all day long. You cannot get away from this person. It drives you nuts. Number two, unhealthy people, because of this false and erroneous understanding about how human worth works, are always acting for other people. Why do they have to act for other people? Because they're worthless. They don't want somebody to, they don't want to present their real self to anybody because they're worthless. What's the only possible result of a worthless person presenting his or her real self to other people? It's complete rejection. So they have no choice in this belief system but to always be acting for others. Now think about that. Think about professional actors who get paid for it. Do you think that at the end of the day they're just jumping around, skipping around, having all the energy in the world? No, it takes a lot of energy to act. It takes a lot of mindful energy to act. It's exhausting. So now imagine a situation where a person is going to agree to get into a situation where they're going to be locked in with people for long periods of time. Now think about the fact that in this social or family situation where you're going to be out all day with your family and close, close around other people for maybe, let's say it's a vacation. You know, you're going to be off on vacation for a week with these people. They're going to be around you every day. You're going to be around them every day. What does that mean? It means every day of acting all day long, never being able to get away from yourself. So when unhealthy people agree to situations that are going to force them around other people for long periods of time with no way out, no way to get away, get by themselves, because you see, that's the only time that the unhealthy person can truly be himself or herself, is when he or she is alone. That's the only time that they feel safe to do that. Because why? Because they're worthless. And they can't let other people know that. Because the only possible result of that would be disgust and rejection. So the unhealthy person unconsciously knows when they go when they have a big party or something coming up or a big social event or a vacation, the unhealthy person knows that this is going to mean a lot of exhausting acting. Trying, I'm putting that in air quotes, trying not to be abusive or mean. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. Do you think healthy people have to try not to be abusive? Healthy people don't have to try not to be abusive. They just aren't abusive. Why are they just not abusive? They're not abusive as a naturally occurring result of the healthy thinking and attitudes that they live with. That's why. So I've talked about that as like a water hose. You know, whatever that water hose is connected to, el grifo, the faucet, you know, whatever that water hose is connected to, that's what will come through the hose. And when we talk about people as being water hoses, what we're talking about, what does that hose go back to? It goes back to our attitudes and our thinking. Our attitudes, our thinking, our perspectives. Whatever our attitudes and thinking and perspectives are, that is what will come out of the water hose. The naturally occurring result of that thinking, of those attitudes. So an abusive person is abusive because of his attitudes. that he lives with or she lives with. The healthy person is not abusive as a natural result of the thinking and attitudes and perspectives that he or she lives with. You see how that works. By the way, what is motivating? Now think about this real closely. What is motivating an unhealthy person to try to not be abusive and mean? If you can get this point, it'll be mind blowing for you. What is motivating the unhealthy person to want to try to not be abusive and mean? See Ann typing, and somebody else too. Let's ask this: is what is driving that desire purely a matter of them caring genuinely about other people? Aha, Ann's got it. Ann's got it. Other people's opinions. Yeah, Heather says we need other people to validate our worth. So let's step through it here. It's not that they just say, you know what, I don't want that person to feel hurt. I'm not going to say it's not that at all. It's just not their primary motive. Their primary motive goes back to worth. I think you guys have figured it out. Remember, where does the unhealthy person's sense of worth have to come from? It has to come from what people think. When the person can't sustain the act of happy and friendly for long enough periods of time, oh, by the way, I'm going to switch over here to, I forgot, supporters only. You folks there on YouTube, please join us over on Locals. We're going to finish up this conversation, and you can join us there by going to thelastsymptom.locals.com or by downloading the locals.com app from the App Store and searching for The Last Symptom by Brian Barnett. You don't want to miss the rest of this conversation. It's going to be fascinating.